I was asked to post a video on how I dye these packs, so I thought I would just throw this together real quick and show you how I do it. I've got two packs there. This is the lighter OD one. I call it OD, it's my version. This is the darker OD. I've got a couple of pouches that I'm going to throw in also. And obviously the more you use the dye, you start to use it up. But I think I've got enough that I'll get some good results just with the one Rit Apple Green. Throw in some vinegar with it. That helps it soak into the synthetic material better. And I just start out with a great big pot of water, and I'm going to heat that to about 195, and then I just mix it all up in this bucket here. You want to make sure everything is wet before you actually put it in the dye. This is just regular Rit dye, and you pour in the vinegar in with the water, and that helps the synthetic material to absorb the dye. Now, Rit actually does make a dye for synthetics, and that will actually dye the plastic parts, the buckles and such. This stuff, even though you're using the vinegar, I have not found that it works to dye the plastic at all, but I don't really need it. It's not a big deal, so this works well enough for me. Now on these packs, I've unzipped everything and gotten everything as wet as I can, and that just helps the dye flow through the pack, through the material, and gets a more even coverage. We've almost reached the magic number there, if you can see it through the steam. I'm going to let this heat up a little bit hotter because it's going to sit in the bucket for a few minutes while I warm up a second pot of water. Okay, we've got our hot water. I'm going to pour in the dye now, swish it around a few times, and then I'll throw everything in, and then I'll get back to you. So that's both packs in. I'm going to check them after 15 or 20 minutes and see if they are to my liking. If not, I'll let them soak a little longer. There wasn't room for all the pouches, so after the packs are done, I'll throw them in. And I expect that some of the dye will be used up, so they might not take as much. They might not get as dark, but that's okay. They're just pouches, and they hang on the pack, and if they're different shades, that just helps to break up the outline a little better. You can see there that I've had a few spills, and that will stain the inside of your bathtub, but bleach will take it out, so that's just something to be aware of. I've got the packs out of the vat now. The pouches are in there soaking away, and this is the lighter of the two packs, and it took the dye okay. I can see it. This one, not so much. This was the darker of the two, and I didn't really expect it would take very much of the dye, but I thought the light spots would, but I'm not even really seeing much green in the light spots, so maybe it was already saturated with the dye from the first time around. Once everything gets rinsed off and dried out, we will see what is what. This was the medium OD. It does look darker than the Holy Apple Green pouch. So that'll be interesting to look at once it's on my back and moving around out in the woods. You know, it's got kind of a combination of darker and lighter areas, but they are decidedly green, and it could be a good look. It might be effective. The darker one, as mentioned earlier, really doesn't look like it took much of the dye at all. Like around the zipper and stuff, I know I sprayed it with some silicone to lubricate the zipper, so that might have gotten into the cloth. I knew the dark part of it wasn't going to take much of the dye, but I thought these lighter areas would, but very little, if any. I'll get a quick side-by-side of these two. And again from the other side. You can see the mesh on the inside of the pack flaps took the colors as well. These are the two Sustainment pouches. They had never been dyed before, and so they did take a little bit. They kind of look yellowish green now, and that's okay. By the time I put the pouches in, I think most of the dye had been used up. This was one of those radio pouches, and I just threw it in there to see if it would get dyed at all. It's mostly waterproof, so it doesn't look like it took anything. And then this Sustainment pouch had already been dyed kind of a darker olive drab before, and it took maybe a little bit of the apple green, but not very much. Anyhow, I'm going to let these hang and drip dry. We will look at them later once they're dry and look at the final product. It's the next morning, everything's dried out, and here's the finished results. This is the medium OD, originally medium OD. Now you can see that the apple green has taken in the light spots pretty well. I threw the pack on the frame and the pouches on it. I probably should have shot this first, but it is what it is. This is the pack I called the dark OD, and indeed the dark spots really didn't take any of the apple green, but some of the lighter areas did, and I'm happy with the results. It looks better than I thought it would.